The heavy gates creaked open behind her, their sound slicing through the silence like a final verdict. Liora Wren stumbled forward, refusing to show weakness, even as the grip on her arm tightened. Behind her, the echo of her stepfather's laughter drifted into the night, light and casual, like a man who'd just concluded a simple business deal. "I assume the funds have arrived," he said, voice laced with indifference. A figure stepped out from beneath the archway of the estate, tall and sharply dressed, his presence both elegant and unyielding. The shadows clung to his features, but there was no mistaking the cold intelligence in his pale eyes. Cassian Rook, the man whispered about in closed circles, the tycoon known for collecting power and eliminating liabilities. "It's done," Cassian said simply. "You can go." Leora's heart thudded in her chest as she lunged toward the gates, but two guards caught her before she made it a step. Her voice trembled with rage. "You can't just pass me off like property." Cassian moved closer. There was no rush in his step, just the calm certainty of a man who'd never been denied. "You're not being passed off," he said. "You're being paid for." She met his gaze, defiant despite the panic churning in her chest. "I'm not some item on a ledger. You can't keep me here." A trace of a smile flickered at the edge of his mouth, brief and unsettling. "You're free to try and leave," he replied. "But understand this, wherever you go, I'll be one step ahead." The mansion's doors opened behind him, revealing a world that shimmered with cold elegance, marble floors, high ceilings, and chandeliers that sparkled like ice. Her stepfather didn't look back as he disappeared into the night, leaving her in the hands of a stranger. Cassian didn't glance her way as he gave the order. "Take her to her quarters. Make sure she understands the expectations." Leora's voice steadied even though her thoughts were a storm. "Why me? What is it you want?" He paused mid-step, back still to her. Something unrateable passed over his face, a flicker so brief she wasn't sure it had been real. "I want nothing from you," he said at last. "You serve a purpose. Accept that, and this will go more smoothly." The walk through the mansion was a blur of twisting hallways and silent glances. Every turn, every locked door was quietly imprinted in her mind. She had been caught before, trapped in her stepfather's greed, abandoned in the silence left by her mother's absence. But this place, for all its luxury, was no different. A cage lined with silk was still a cage. Her room was impossibly ornate. Soft bedding, gold trim, and windows that framed perfectly kept gardens surrounded by high walls. A guard stood posted outside, unmoving, unreadable. Liora waited, counting the seconds until the hush of night settled fully around her. She walked to the window, fingers brushing the glass, testing for weakness, searching for a flaw in the perfection. A soft knock broke her focus. Before she could respond, the door opened. Cassian stepped in, his jacket gone, his tie loosened, though nothing in his expression hinted at ease. "I assume you're already crafting your escape," he said. Liora turned to face him, chin lifted. "Wouldn't you?" He walked toward her slowly, deliberately, each step measured. "Let me be clear. You're here because I've allowed it. You'll remain because I insist. Fighting me won't grant you freedom. It will only make the walls tighter." Her voice was a whisper, but it didn't shake. "Then why not get rid of me altogether?" He looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time she thought she saw something flicker behind his controlled exterior, something colder than indifference, but deeper than anger. Then he simply turned, leaving her with a silence more suffocating than any lock. "Killing me would be simpler," Liora said, her voice low but steady. A dangerous light flickered in Cassian's eyes, cold and sharp. "Too simple," he replied. "Your stepfather doesn't deserve that kind of mercy. He needs to learn that actions have consequences. And you, Miss Wren, are the perfect reminder." "I'm not your lesson," she said, stepping toward him despite the fear curling in her chest. "And I won't break." Cassian's hand moved with startling speed, his fingers gently catching her chin. His touch was careful but unyielding. "Everyone breaks," he murmured. "It's only a matter of pressure. The right place, the right time." Then, just as quickly, he released her and walked to the door. "Get some rest," he said without looking back. "We start tomorrow." The door locked with a mechanical click, sealing her inside. But it didn't seal her will. He might have purchased her body with a bank transfer and a contract, but her spirit wasn't part of the deal. And as long as she had that, she was still hers. The morning light streamed through the tall windows of the Rook estate, casting gold across cold marble. It looked warm. It wasn't. Liora stood silently in Cassian's study, her back straight as he paced around her like a strategist examining a piece on his board. "These," he said, placing a sleek tablet on the desk, "are your boundaries, your daily schedule, your access zones, your expectations." She glanced at the screen, her stomach churning at the precision of it. Each hour accounted for, every moment planned, her life sliced into pieces and labeled. "And if I don't follow this?" she asked. "Then you'll understand why your stepfather was so eager to hand you over," he answered calmly, not as a threat, but as a truth already written. "Do you always lead with fear?" she asked, tilting her head. "Or am I just lucky?" Cassian's eyes narrowed, and for a heartbeat, something shifted behind his polished exterior. A flicker, quick and gone. "Your attitude is noted, Miss Wren," he said coolly, "but it will not serve you here." A knock interrupted them. James, the head of security, entered carrying documents. "Sir, the Shanghai merger requires your attention." Cassian didn't hesitate. "Watch her," he instructed, already scanning the paperwork as if Liora had faded into the walls. But she hadn't. The moment his eyes dropped to the files, she reached across the desk, snatched the tablet, and hurled it against the far wall. The device shattered with a sharp crack, fragments skidding across the carpet like broken promises. Silence fell. James reached for the weapon at his side, but Cassian raised a hand, stopping him. His eyes locked on Liora. The calm was still there, but it was tight now, stretched over something volatile. "Leave us," he said. James hesitated, then left without a word. The door closed with finality. Cassian approached her, each step slow, precise. When he stopped, he was so close she could feel the gravity of his presence, the scent of something expensive and calculated. "That was dramatic," he said. "Did it help?" "I won't be programmed like one of your machines," she said firmly. His hand moved again, gripping her jaw, not to harm, but to anchor her. "Don't confuse patience with surrender," he said. "You're not in control here." "And don't confuse possession with power," Liora replied, pulse racing but eyes unflinching. Something flickered in his expression, an emotion too quick to name. Then, in a move that surprised them both, his thumb brushed her lower lip, the gesture shockingly soft. "You're not what I expected," he said, almost to himself. Liora jerked her face away, sorry to disappoint. "On the contrary," Cassian murmured, returning to his desk. The wall went back up, the distance, the cold. "You'll dine with me tonight, 7 o'clock sharp. Consider it your first test. And if I don't show?" He didn't look at her as he picked up his phone. "Then you'll learn that hunger is only the beginning." He spoke into the receiver. "James will escort you to the dining room. Don't be late." Liora was led back to her room, her thoughts a hurricane of strategy and instinct. She had expected power. She hadn't expected interest, and that made Cassian Rook even more dangerous. Dinner hadn't felt like a gesture of civility. Not really. Liora had expected punishment after what she'd done, shattering the tablet, defying him to his face. But instead, Cassian Rook had invited her to dine. It wasn't kindness. It was something else. She stood by the window, watching gardeners tend the estate's endless hedges, their movements mechanical and precise. And then it clicked. Cassian might have claimed control over her body, but her will, her defiance, that intrigued him, fascinated him, even, and perhaps that fascination was something she could twist in her favor. She spent the afternoon pacing the room like a strategist at war. Every conversation, every glance, every subtle shift in his voice, she replayed them all. He was a man obsessed with order, with control, but something about her disrupted that balance. Why? At exactly 7, James arrived outside her door. Without a word, she followed, shoulders back, chin lifted, a silent battle plan forming behind her eyes. He might have been the architect of this gilded cage, but even the strongest walls had fault lines. That night, the mansion fell into its usual hush, but Liora did not sleep. For 3 weeks, she had studied the estate like a blueprint. Guard rotations, camera blind spots, when doors were left unlocked for early morning deliveries. She had noted everything, especially Cassian's habit of retreating to his study past midnight. She slipped through the hallway like a whisper, the moonlight casting silver paths at her feet. Her shoes dangled from her hand as she tiptoed across the marble floors, every step calculated, breath quiet, heart louder. The kitchen door opened without resistance. Outside, the air was cool and laced with the scent of coming rain. She stayed low, shadowed by the tall hedges, the iron gate just ahead, 20 yards 1510. "Enjoying the gardens, Miss Wren?" The voice halted her mid-step, slicing clean through the night. Cassian stepped into view, emerging from behind a trimmed yew like a ghost made of silk and steel. Leora's pulse leapt, but her expression didn't falter. "Your landscaping is meticulous," she said, backing away slowly. "I thought I'd take a walk. In the middle of the night? Barefoot?" His gaze dropped to her shoes, and Liora acted on instinct. She threw them. He caught them easily, but it gave her just enough time to run. She bolted, bare feet hitting the gravel, heart hammering with each stride. She barely made it 3 steps before his arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her off the ground. She struggled, twisting, driving her elbow back. It connected. A grunt, and then he spun her, pressing her against a tree. Rain began to fall, slow and soft, threading through the leaves above. "You planned well," he said between shallow breaths. "I'll give you that. You were close." "How did you know?" she hissed. "I know everything that happens in this house," he said, voice low, breath brushing her cheek. Every light flicker, every footstep, every breath. His face was only inches from hers now. The bark dug into her back, but it was the warmth of him that unsettled her more. She could feel the tension coiled beneath his surface, tightly held, carefully caged. "What now?" she asked. "Back to the cell? More guards?" "No." His hands loosened, but he didn't step away. "Now we negotiate. I don't make deals with men like you." "Then think of it as a game," he said, something dangerous and amused glinting in his eyes. "You want freedom? Earn it. Outsmart me. Escape on your own terms, and I'll let you go." Security lights flickered to life, flooding the garden with artificial brilliance. For a moment, Liora saw something unguarded in his expression, a flash of admiration, quickly buried beneath his usual calm. "You're lying," she said, breath still ragged. "You won't let me go." "I never lie, Miss Wren," he said smoothly. "Lies are bad for business." His hand brushed against her arm just once, and then he stepped back, retreating like the tide. His hand moved to her throat, not in threat, not to harm, just a presence, resting lightly. But the message was clear. "If you win," Cassian said, his voice low and unshaken, "you walk away. No strings, no chase. But if I win, you give me everything. No more resistance, no more games." A roll of thunder cracked the sky, punctuating his vow. Leora's pulse throbbed against his fingers. "And if I refuse to play?" she asked. "Then nothing changes," he said simply. "You stay what you are now, an asset on paper." His thumb brushed the hollow of her neck, tracing the rapid beat beneath her skin. "At least this way," he added, "you have a chance." The rain came harder, soaking through her clothes until the fabric clung to her skin. His white shirt had turned nearly transparent, revealing the sculpted form beneath. Liora forced herself to look away. "Fine," she said at last. "I'll play." A slow, satisfied smile spread across his face, feral and unreadable. "Then let the game begin." He stepped back, releasing her from the cage of his presence. "You have 1 month. Use it well." Liora straightened her spine, brushing wet hair from her eyes. "When I win," she said, her voice steady, "I want more than just freedom. I want everything you took from me." He paused, gaze flicking to her mouth before returning to her eyes. "Ambitious. But remember, Miss Wren," he added, voice darkening, "I never lose." And just like that, he turned and disappeared into the shadows, rain trailing behind him like a curtain falling after the first act. Liora stood still, rain sliding down her face like tears she refused to shed. She had agreed to his game, but she would write her own rules. 2 guards stepped out from the darkness, flanking her silently as she returned to the house. But their presence no longer unnerved her. Let them report her every move. Let them watch. Because what Cassian Rook didn't understand was that he had just handed her the one thing she needed most: access. Every game had rules, and rules could be bent. Every player had weaknesses, and Cassian's was his own pride. As her bare feet padded over the cool stone, Liora's mind surged with plans. 1 month, 1 chance, 1 carefully laid trap. And this time, she wouldn't lose. Later, her fingers brushed across the rows of leather-bound books in the estate's private library. Her mind wasn't on the titles, but on what she had seen earlier that day. A guest had come, a man with hard eyes and a cruel smirk who had looked at her as if she were up for bidding. She hadn't spoken a word, but before he could even approach, Cassian had intervened. His body tense, voice edged with quiet steel as he dismissed the man without ceremony. And the way his hand had hovered behind her back, subtle, protective, ready to guide her out of reach, it lingered in her memory more than she cared to admit. The library door creaked open. Cassian stepped inside, his tie loosened, jacket nowhere in sight. The golden hour light streamed in through the windows, casting sharp lines across his features, catching the tension still lingering in his jaw. "You shouldn't be in here," he said, but made no move to send her away. "Who was he?" she asked, tone carefully neutral. "Marcus Reynolds," Cassian answered, pouring a drink without hesitation. "Weapons dealer. Former partner." "You didn't seem thrilled to see him," Liora noted. "Stay away from him," Cassian replied, his voice quieter now. "He's not someone you want attention from." "I thought I was just property," she said, stepping closer. "Why bother protecting an investment?" He stopped mid-sip, lowering the glass slowly. "Is that what you think this is?" "Isn't it?" she pressed, watching him carefully. "Or is there another reason you keep me locked away? Is it fear?" He set the glass down with a controlled motion, his face unreadable. "You're playing a dangerous game, Miss Wren. I learned from the best." She moved into his space, the air thick between them, close enough now to feel the heat of his body, the way tension seemed to roll off him like a storm not yet broken. "What are you afraid of?" she asked. "That someone else might want what you've claimed." In an instant, his hand gripped her waist, firm, unyielding. The touch sent an unexpected current racing through her. "You have no idea what you're getting into." "Then explain it," Liora said, eyes locked on his. "And stop pretending you don't care." Even as his grip remained firm, her question cut deeper than she expected. "What's the real reason you brought me here?" Liora asked, her voice softer than before, more dangerous in its calm. For a split second, something flickered in Cassian's expression. Something real. Then, just as quickly, it vanished behind the steel mask he always wore. He let her go, stepping back as if her touch had burned him. "Leave." "No." Her hand shot out, fingers wrapping around his wrist. It startled them both. "I'm tired of riddles. If you want me to stay away from Reynolds, then tell me why." His muscles coiled beneath her touch, tense and on edge. For a moment she thought he might throw her out, but instead he exhaled, a slow, weary sound that felt heavier than words. "Reynolds isn't just in weapons," he said. "He's a collector. Of rare things, things he thinks he can own." His voice was edged with something unfamiliar. Disgust. "Women like you, strong, unbroken, fierce. He sees them as trophies. He wears them down, bit by bit, until there's nothing left." One word lingered between them, unspoken but deafening. "Beautiful." "And you're different?" Liora asked. The challenge was there, but her voice had softened. Cassian looked at her then. Really looked. "I've been called many things," he said quietly. "A monster, a machine. Maybe I am, but I don't destroy what—" He stopped, jaw clenched, couldn't finish. "What you care about," she offered gently, stepping closer. His eyes darkened. Don't what?" Her voice was barely a breath. "Remind you that beneath the suits and power and silence, you're still human?" His hand rose again, fingers finding her throat, but the touch was different this time. Not ownership, not control. A barrier. A warning. Maybe even a plea. "You think you can use that against me," he said, voice tight. "That if you push hard enough, my humanity will break before I do." "No," she whispered. "I think you're using my captivity to hide from something you don't want to face." She leaned closer. "I think I scare you, Cassian Rook." His name on her lips made him flinch, just slightly. His fingers drifted, tracing the pulse at her neck. So light she almost wondered if she'd imagined it. "You want to know what really terrifies me?" he asked, his voice rough. "It's the way you look at me, like you see through it all. Like you're still choosing to fight me, challenge me, and not give in." Liora's breath caught. "Then let me go." "I can't," he said. The word sounded torn from him. "Not yet. Not until it's over." "Until what's over?" He stepped away, the distance between them growing in more ways than one. "Your month isn't over, Miss Wren. Keep playing." At the door, he paused. "Stay away from Reynolds, please." The pleas lingered longer than his presence did. She sank into one of the library's leather armchairs, her thoughts tangled. She had come searching for flaws in his armor, something to weaponize. Instead, she'd found fragments of a man trying desperately not to come undone. Night cloaked the estate, lightning flickering in the far distance. Liora stared out the tall window, rain dancing against the glass. Somewhere between defiance and surrender, the lines had begun to blur. Cassian Rook was supposed to be the villain, her captor, the obstacle between her and freedom. So why did her skin still burn where he touched her? Why did his rare moments of vulnerability shake her more than his threats? And most dangerous of all, why did part of her want to understand the man behind the mask? The game had shifted. What began as a contest of will had become something neither of them anticipated. And Liora no longer knew if she was winning or being drawn in. The chandelier bathed the dining hall in gold, casting soft light across polished silverware and glittering wine glasses. Liora sat among New York's elite, men and women who wore power like perfume, hiding rot behind tailored suits and charming smiles. "Miss Wren," a voice beside her said. Andrew Morrison, hedge fund manager. His handshake earlier had been dry, rehearsed. His eyes, however, never quite met hers. "How did you come to know our host?" he asked. Before she could respond, another guest leaned in with curiosity sharpened like a blade. "Yes, do tell. Cassian never brings guests, especially not to these." The weight of the room pressed against Liora's shoulders like silk spun with suspicion. She could feel it, their curiosity, coated in polite smiles but sharpened with hunger. These weren't simply guests. They were vultures wrapped in velvet and Versace. Across the candlelit space she caught Cassian watching her. His expression revealed nothing, but the stillness in his stance told her everything. He was listening. "Mr. Rook and I have a business arrangement," Liora said carefully, lifting her wine glass to her lips. Another man drifted into their circle, older, silver-haired, with a smile so polished it gleamed like his cufflinks. "Senator Langston," she recalled, recognizing him from the introductions earlier. "A business arrangement?" he echoed with feigned curiosity. "That's not what I heard." The temperature seemed to drop a degree. Before she could respond, Cassian appeared beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. Possessive, steady. "Senator," he said, voice edged with warning, "I trust you're not making my guest uncomfortable." "Not at all," Langston replied with a tight grin. "Merely intrigued by your investment, especially given your history with Wren Enterprises." Liora froze, the wine glass pausing midair. Wren Enterprises, her mother's company. Before the fire. Before her stepfather had taken it over and dismantled it piece by piece. Cassian's fingers tightened, just slightly, but she felt it. "The past is irrelevant," he said smoothly. "Shall we move on to something less tedious? Perhaps the energy bill?" But Liora's mind was already unraveling threads she didn't know existed. She had believed this whole arrangement, her captivity, was about her stepfather's debts. Now, for the second time, someone had alluded to something deeper, something older. The night unfolded like a strategic war. Polished smiles, coded questions, carefully concealed truths. Liora watched Cassian move through the crowd, evading anything that hinted at events from 5 years ago, the same year her mother died. Then came the shift. As the servers began clearing the dessert plates, the energy in the room fractured. A new presence stepped in, Marcus Reynolds. He walked into the dining room like it belonged to him, drawing attention like a blade draws blood. Cassian's body tensed the moment their eyes met. "Am I too late?" Reynolds asked, his voice casual but his gaze fixed solely on Liora. "You weren't invited," Cassian said flatly. Reynolds ignored him, his steps bringing him closer to her chair. "Miss Wren," he said with a slow smile, "you look just like your mother." Silence spread across the room like a shiver. Liora's heart stammered. He reached for her hand. He never touched it. Cassian moved so fast it was barely visible, his fingers clamped around Reynolds' wrist, grip steel tight. "Outside," he growled. The two men disappeared into the corridor. Conversation resumed, but Liora noticed it now, guards shifting near the exits, tension thickening the air like fog before a storm. Something was wrong. She slipped away from the table, quiet and unnoticed, following the murmur of raised voices down the hall to Cassian's study. The door was ajar. "You're playing a dangerous game." Reynolds' voice slithered through the crack. "Does she even know the truth about that night? Touch her again and I'll end you." Cassian's voice was low, barely human. Reynolds laughed. "You really think you can protect her? When she finds out what you've done?" A crash cut him off. Liora could picture it. Cassian's control shattering, his hands at Reynolds' throat, the monster slipping from its cage. "It wasn't your fault," Reynolds hissed, his tone both strained and mocking. "The accident wasn't your fault? But the cover-up?" He laughed again. "Does sweet Liora know her mother's death paid for your empire?" Leora's world tilted. She stumbled back, bumping into a side table. A vase toppled and shattered, the crash echoing like a gunshot through the corridor. The study door burst open. Cassian stood there, breath ragged, his knuckles bloodied and his mask finally gone. For the first time since she met him, she saw it. Fear. "Liora." She ran. Through the hall, past startled faces and whispered confusion, into the garden, away from chandeliers and secrets and things she didn't want to understand. But the air outside couldn't clear the weight in her chest, couldn't silence the storm inside her, her mother, the company, Cassian's empire. Her imprisonment, pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known she was part of, and now couldn't unsee. Footsteps crunched behind her. "Let me explain," Cassian said softly. "Explain what?" She turned, voice splintered with grief and rage. "How my mother's death? Was that your foundation?" Leora's voice cracked like glass under pressure. "Did you buy me to make peace with your conscience?" Cassian didn't flinch, but his silence screamed. "It's not that simple." "Then make it simple." She advanced, fists clenched, fury pulsing beneath her skin. "What did Reynolds mean? What did you do?" She struck his chest with both hands, once, twice, before he caught her wrists. He didn't stop her out of anger. He stopped her like someone who didn't want to break again. "Your mother's death was an accident," he said quietly. "But what came after?" His hands fell away, and he ran a trembling hand through his hair. "There are people, powerful people, who would do anything to keep that truth buried." "And I'm what?" she snapped. "Collateral damage?" "No," he said, voice rough. "You're the only thing that matters." The words hit the air like an explosion, raw, real, and completely unplanned. Cassian stepped back, his composure fractured. "Your stepfather was ready to hand you over to Reynolds. I wouldn't let that happen." "Why?" Leora's voice cracked. "Because you owed my mother? Because you—" He looked away, jaw locked, breath tight. "Because Reynolds destroys everything he touches," he said. "And you deserve better than that." She studied him, her gaze searching for deception, but found none, only the weight of secrets he hadn't yet spoken. "There's more," she said. "You're still not telling me everything." "No," he admitted, "I'm not. Because if you knew, you'd be in real danger. Not this gilded version you think you're trapped in." Liora let out a bitter laugh. "You think this is a game to me?" she asked. "My mother is dead. My life is a shadow of what it was. And you've locked me in this place, and now you want me to believe it's protection?" "Yes." He stepped closer, his voice lower, more urgent. "Until I can dismantle what's behind all of this, until I can be sure you won't be next, this is the only way I can keep you alive." She spread her arms, gesturing to the elegant cage around them. "This isn't protection, Cassian. This is control." His eyes darkened. "Maybe. But you're still breathing. And as long as you're here, that won't change." Inside, the party played on, unaware of the emotional firestorm unraveling just beyond the glass doors. Liora crossed her arms, suddenly cold despite the summer night. "I want the truth," she said, voice firm. "All of it. You'll have it," Cassian said, almost to himself. "When it's safe." His hand moved as if to touch her face, but at the last moment, he pulled it back. "For now," he added, "trust that everything I've done, every wall I've built, has been to keep you alive." She met his eyes, and for the first time saw the war raging inside him. Duty versus truth, guilt versus the need to protect. For the first time, she wondered if this cage was shielding her from something far more ruthless than Cassian Rook. 3 days passed like smoke pressed beneath glass. The tension inside the estate was suffocating. Liora wandered its halls like a lioness behind bars, restless, watchful. Cassian vanished into his study, surfacing only for urgent matters, always distant, always somewhere else. That morning, everything detonated. She had asked, again, for access to her mother's files. The answer, once again, was no. But this time, she didn't walk away. "You can't keep burying the past," she snapped, slamming her hands on his desk. Cassian didn't look up. "We've already discussed this." "No," she shot back. "You dismissed me. Every single time." She reached across the desk and snapped his laptop shut. "Look at me when you deny me answers about my own mother." His eyes met hers, and for the first time in days, something broke through the surface. Anger, controlled, but cold. You're testing my patience. And you're testing my sanity. She leaned in, eyes blazing. Reynolds knew things about the accident, about you. What aren't you telling me? Cassian stood so abruptly the chair scraped harshly across the floor. Drop it, Liora. Or what? She circled the desk, refusing to retreat. Lock me in my room, double the guards? What's left in your arsenal, Cassian? I'm trying to protect you. From the truth? Her voice rose, sharp and shaking. That you built all this empire on top of my mother's grave? He moved then fast, pinning her to the wall with one fluid step. You have no idea what you're accusing me of. He growled. Then enlighten me. She didn't flinch, didn't back down, her chin lifted, eyes burning into his. What did you do? What is it you're so afraid I'll uncover? Liora's voice sliced through the charged air. Cassian exploded. Everything. He stepped back, but the words kept coming, like floodgates had been ripped open. The accident, the hostile takeover, your stepfather's betrayal, it's all connected, and the people behind it, they'll kill to keep it buried. You, me, anyone who digs too deep. There was something raw in his eyes now. Something human. I've made decisions I'll never forgive myself for, he said. But since that night, every move I've made has been to keep you alive. I never asked you to, she said, voice tight. No, he said quietly, the edge in his voice softening into something darker, deeper. But you have my protection, whether you want it or not. She shoved at his chest. I don't want anything from you. Liar. He caught her wrist, his touch sending heat straight to her core. You want answers, justice, revenge. I see it in you, every time you look at me. You don't know what I want, don't I? His hand slid to her throat, light, not threatening, his thumb brushing the flutter of her pulse. Your body disagrees. The space between them vibrated, fragile and volatile. Liora knew she should pull away, hold on to the fury that had carried her here, but she didn't, couldn't. There was something in his eyes, an internal war of discipline and desire, that mirrored her own chaos. Let me go, she whispered. But there was no weight behind it. His answer was not words, but a kiss. It wasn't soft. It wasn't asked for. It was fierce, unrelenting, like he was drowning in everything he had spent years burying. His hands tangled in her hair, anchoring her to him as he pressed her against the wall, and she answered with fire. Months of anger and confusion burning between their lips. She bit his lower lip hard. He growled low in his throat, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. Her legs wrapped around him instinctively as he carried her to the desk, sending papers and files flying. The kiss deepened, shifting into something more dangerous. Beneath the fury was a tenderness that terrified them both, hands slowing, breaths catching. One hand cradled her face. The other supported her back. He kissed her like a man at war with himself. Then suddenly, he tore away, like the moment itself had scorched him. Liora remained seated on the desk, breathless, stunned, watching him pace the room like a man unraveling thread by thread. This can't happen, he said, his voice hoarse. But it just did. She touched her lips, still swollen from the kiss. Why did you stop? He turned away, fingers digging into the back of his chair. Because I won't be another person who takes something from you. She slid down from the desk, adjusting her clothes slowly. Is that what you think this is? Some act of possession? His voice was brittle. You're my prisoner, Liora. Whatever this is, between us, it can't be real. Not when I hold the leash. You're wrong. She gestured between them. This, whatever it is the only real thing in this twisted situation. It doesn't matter. His armor came crashing back into place. It won't happen again. Oh, more rules, she said, stepping toward him. More boundaries, more control. When will you learn that you can't control everything? Not your empire, not your past, and definitely not what's happening right now. He said nothing, but she saw it. The tremble in his hands, the strain in his jaw. Tell me something, she pushed. When you kissed me, was it power? Was it silence? Or was it the one thing you couldn't control? His eyes flashed. Get out. No. She moved closer, refusing to back down. Answer me. For once. Just tell me the truth. His control snapped. In 2 strides he had her pinned again, but this time there was no heat in it, just desperation. He rested his forehead against hers, eyes shut, breath uneven. I can't want you, he whispered. Not with everything that's coming. Not with what's at stake. She touched his cheek gently. He flinched at the contact, not because it hurt, but because it mattered. "What's coming, Cassian?" she asked. "What are you so afraid of?" He pulled away, but this time she saw it. Whatever was on the horizon, it wasn't just about power. It was about survival. "James will escort you back to your room," Cassian said, his voice once again cloaked in control. "Stay there until I call for you." "Running again?" Liora asked, bitterness creeping into her voice. He paused at the door, hand resting on the handle. "No," he said quietly. "I'm trying to run toward something. I just hope I get there before it's too late." Then he was gone, leaving Liora alone in the silence, her breath still shaky, the memory of his kiss ghosting across her lips. Whatever game they'd been playing had shifted. The rules had been rewritten. Only now, neither of them seemed to know what they were. The storm came suddenly. Thunder shattered the sky, and with it, the mansion's power flickered and died. Seconds later, the low hum of emergency generators filled the air, but Liora knew what that meant. She'd overheard the staff weeks ago. It took the security system 3 minutes to fully reset during power transitions. 3 minutes. All locks disengaged, all cameras blind, no second chances. She moved. Like a shadow slipping through the dark, Liora navigated the halls, heart pounding against her ribs. She reached Cassian's study and slipped inside. The soft, eerie glow from backup lights cast the room in shades of blue and silver. She didn't bother with the laptop, it would be encrypted. But the antique safe hidden behind the oil painting of Cassian's father? She'd seen him access it more than once. The combination came to her easily, the founding year of his empire. A detail she'd spotted in an old article. The lock clicked open. Inside, rows of neatly labeled folders. Names, companies, dates. But one stood out. Wren Holdings. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. The first document was an acquisition deal, dated exactly 1 week after her mother's death. Her stomach turned. Then came something worse. A technical report on the accident. Officially, it had been called a mechanical failure. But here, in black and white, was something else entirely. Tampering. Sabotage. She flipped through pages as thunder rolled outside. Then came the final blow. A contract. Not just one of sale, one of placement. One that detailed offshore accounts, financial shell corporations, and a shadow entity orchestrating the entire takeover. Her stepfather hadn't sold her to Cassian. He had sold her to them. Cassian had intercepted the deal. He had outbid them, not to own her, but to stop them from getting her. The study door creaked open behind her. Liora spun around, documents clutched to her chest. James stood in the doorway, his face pale, drawn. "Miss Wren," he said, slowly reaching toward his weapon. "Step away from the safe." "Where's Cassian?" "He's not here," James replied, "which is why I can't let you leave with that file." He stepped forward, tense but not aggressive. "Put it back and we'll forget this happened." "They killed her," Liora whispered. "My mother. They made it look like an accident." "You don't understand what you're dealing with." "Then explain it." Her voice cracked. "Why lie? Why lock me away? Why hide all of this?" James' expression shifted. Grief, maybe, or regret. "Cassian's been trying to protect you," he said. "Keeping you here wasn't about control. It was about keeping you breathing." Her grip tightened on the documents. "By keeping me ignorant?" "By keeping you alive," James replied. But then something moved behind him. Too late, Liora opened her mouth to warn him, just as a heavy object struck the back of his head. James crumpled to the ground. A man in black tactical gear stepped over his body. 2 more followed. Faces covered, movements sharp and surgical. "Target secured," one of them said into a radio. "Proceeding with extraction." Liora didn't think, she acted. She hurled the closest object, a heavy glass paperweight, at the leader's head. He dodged, but it gave her just enough time to run. She bolted for the door. A hand caught her arm mid-sprint, yanking her back hard enough to make her stumble. "Alive," one of them growled. "The boss wants her intact." "Don't damage the merchandise." She fought, wild, ruthless. Every self-defense move she'd ever learned, every ounce of survival burned into her muscles. But these men weren't hired thugs. They were trained, and they were here for one purpose. A sharp scent invaded her senses. Fabric pressed against her mouth and nose. Liora struggled, but her limbs were losing strength. Vision blurring, the world dimming. Her final conscious thought was of Cassian. He'd known this was coming. He'd tried to stop it. And now, gunfire. Shots rang out like thunder inside the study. The man holding her jerked, grip slackening. Through the haze, she saw a figure in the doorway. Cassian, fury sculpted into flesh and bone. His eyes locked on her as he moved with brutal precision. Each shot clean, intentional, final. But there were more. Shadows in the hallway, flashes of muzzle light. Then darkness swallowed her whole. When she awoke, the world was chaos. Security stormed through the corridors, weapons drawn, securing every corner of the estate. James sat nearby, holding an ice pack to the side of his head, his face pale and shaken. Cassian knelt beside her. His knuckles were bloodied, his tailored suit torn. But his focus, his entire being, was on her. The moment her eyes opened, his mask cracked. "You reckless, impossible woman," he exhaled, voice rough as his fingers touched her cheek. "What the hell were you thinking?" Liora tried to sit up. The room tilted sideways. "They killed my mother," she whispered. "I know." His voice was gentler now, as if confessing something sacred. "I've been building a case against them for 5 years, tracking wire transfers, fake accounts, offshore deals, waiting for them to slip. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because the more you knew, the bigger the target on your back." His hand moved to her neck, checking her pulse, voice low. "They've been watching you ever since the accident. Waiting. When your stepfather's debt gave them an excuse, they acted. I just got there first." She blinked, trying to process. "You bought me. To stop them. For leverage. To protect you." The pieces were falling into place, but one still didn't fit. "Why risk everything for me?" He didn't answer at first. When he did, it was a whisper, barely audible. "Your mother saved me once," he said. "When no one else would even look at me, she gave me a shot. Believed in me. Everything I built started with her trust." Then his eyes met hers, and the steel cracked for just a moment. "But this isn't just about debt anymore, and you know that." Before she could respond, James stepped forward, a tablet in hand. "We've confirmed the attackers, sir. They're linked to the Valencia cartel." Cassian's expression hardened. "Of course. Reynolds and his silent partners. They'll come again," Liora said quietly. "Yes." Cassian stood. The commander in him returned. "And that's why we're leaving." He turned to James. "Protocol Echo, full evacuation, no digital trace." "You're running," she said. "We're regrouping." He corrected, holding out his hand to help her up. "The game has changed, Liora. You've seen the files. They know that. We need to disappear until I can take them down." "We?" She raised a brow. "Funny, I thought I was just property." He paused, then reached out, his thumb brushing the corner of her mouth, recalling the kiss that had rewritten everything. "You've never been just anything." The estate came alive around them. Security teams moved with fluid precision, packing essentials, wiping devices, sealing the perimeter. But Liora barely saw them. Her mind was split between the weight of truth and the feel of Cassian's hand, still warm in hers. He wasn't her jailer anymore. He was her shield. And maybe something more dangerous than either. But as her fingers brushed the hidden documents still tucked against her skin, she knew the real war had just begun. The truth was still out there. So were the people who killed her mother. And now, she had a choice to make. Trust Cassian, or run while she still could. Outside, the storm howled against the walls. Thunder cracked across the sky, echoing the battle in her chest. Freedom had always been her goal, but freedom to what? To disappear alone, hunted and haunted, or to stay with the man who'd risked everything to keep her breathing? The answer came as the helicopter rose into the night. Liora watched the Manhattan skyline fade beneath them, city lights flickering like stars on fire. Cassian sat beside her, typing rapidly into his laptop, routing their escape through encrypted systems. The last 12 hours felt like fragments from someone else's life. The attack, the betrayal, the truth she couldn't unsee. "Where are we going?" she asked, breaking the heavy silence. "My compound," Cassian said without looking up. "Montana, remote, safe, at least for now." "Where are we headed?" "Remote, defensible, off every official map," Cassian said, eyes still on his laptop as the helicopter banked sharply, the sky tilting with sudden turbulence. Liora pressed a hand to her head. The dull ache from earlier had intensified, the price of being tackled, sedated, nearly stolen. Again. Inside her jacket, the stolen documents weighed heavy, not just in paper but in truth. "No more silence," she said, voice low but firm. "No more protecting me through ignorance. Tell me everything." Cassian finally closed his laptop, gaze steady. He motioned to the pilot, privacy mode engaged. Then he turned to her. "It's a long story. We've got time." He nodded slowly, 5 years ago, your mother uncovered discrepancies inside Wren Industries. On the surface, they looked like accounting errors, but the deeper she dug, the worse it became. Money laundering, illegal arms transactions, cartel connections, all of it hidden under the guise of legitimate business. Leora's breath caught. My stepfather? He was in on it, Cassian confirmed. The Valencia cartel had been using the company for years. Your mother was planning to go public. She had evidence. Names, timelines, enough to destroy everything. Leora's fists clenched on her lap, so they silenced her. They made it look like an accident, but I'd already been investigating them on another front. They'd gone after my sister's company, using threats and pressure to force a sale. When I realized their fingerprints were also on your mother's death, I started connecting the dots. And building a case, Liora murmured. Cassian nodded. But they were always ahead. Witnesses vanished. Records erased. The few who dared to speak up disappeared without a trace. Then I found out what their next move was. He looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. You. The helicopter jolted slightly, matching the pit in Leora's stomach. Why me? She asked. Control, he said. You're the sole heir to Wren Industries. With you under their thumb, they could legitimize the entire operation, take over the company cleanly. You'd sign the papers. You'd sit at the head of the board. On the surface, it would look like nothing had changed. Her voice turned hollow. They wanted me as a puppet. Exactly. And my stepfather agreed to that? Cassian's jaw tightened. He signed the contract the same day. Sold you like a commodity. She closed her eyes, bile rising in her throat. But I was listening, he continued. I intercepted their communication, saw the deal. I used front companies, shell corporations, everything I had to buy you first, to get you out before they could. To protect me. Yes, his gaze didn't waver, but they never stopped watching, never stopped waiting for a moment of weakness. Leora looked down at the papers still hidden inside her jacket. Reynolds, he's one of them. Their enforcer, Cassian said. His specialty is turning people into obedient shadows of themselves. When I saw him at the dinner party, I knew their next move had begun. The helicopter began to descend, the dark outlines of a private airstrip rising below them. Unexpectedly, Cassian's hand found hers. Not a command, not a claim, a silent connection, grounding both of them in the moment. I've spent 5 years gathering evidence, he said. 5 years hunting every thread, every name, every offshore account. And now, you've seen the files. That makes you a liability they can't afford to leave alive. Leora's hand tightened around his. And what does that make you? Expendable, he said, without hesitation. But I'm not letting them take you. As the helicopter touched down beside a waiting jet, wind whipping around them, she pulled him to a halt. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Cassian turned toward her, brushing a damp strand of hair from her cheek. Because if I had, would you have believed me? Her silence was answer enough. You needed to hate me, he added. You needed to fight me. That fire, it kept you from breaking, from becoming what they wanted. A puppet, a pawn. His voice lowered. I've seen too many people lose themselves, but you never stopped resisting, even when it was me you fought. They boarded the jet in silence. Once inside, with engines warming beneath them, Leora pulled the stolen documents from her jacket. She spread them across the sleek black table between them. Show me, she said. Everything. I want to understand. Cassian hesitated, then reached for his briefcase. For the next hour, as the plane carved westward into the sky, he revealed it all. Names, dates, accounts tucked in islands no map listed, shell corporations. Murders made to look like accidents. Entire boardrooms bought with blood and silence. It was a web, and her mother had been the first to touch the center thread. There's more, he said at last, voice quieter now. Something your mother left behind. There's something they never found, Cassian said. Leora's heart skipped. A fail-safe, he continued. Encrypted, hidden. Your mother compiled it, evidence, records, everything. But the key to unlocking it died with her. But if we find it, she said slowly, we could bring them down. Cassian finished, his voice quiet. He leaned back, watching her absorb the full weight of what he'd just told her. But this isn't your burden, Liora. Once we land in Montana, I can arrange everything. New identity, new life. A place they'll never touch you. She studied him, really studied him. Not just the man who once held her captive, but the man who'd bought her freedom with silent currency. protected her with strategy and fire, and now offered her a way out, the man she'd hated, feared, and somehow inexplicably come to trust. "No," she said clearly, "I'm not running, not from them, not from this, and not from you." Something flickered in his eyes, hope or fear or maybe both. "It's dangerous." So is stepping outside. She reached for his hand. "They killed my mother, exploited my stepfather, tried to own me. I want justice." She paused. "Justice and revenge." He didn't let go. "You fought long enough." "Exactly," she said. "Long enough. Now we fight together." Cassian stared at their intertwined fingers. When he finally spoke, the word was a breath, a vow. Together. The jet banked west toward the mountains, toward something that felt like sanctuary or war. As the clouds shifted beneath them, Liora stared out the window. They weren't just escaping anymore. They were chasing truth, and maybe something like redemption. The Montana compound sprawled across a hidden valley, its clean lines blending seamlessly into the wilderness. For 2 weeks, there was quiet. Not peace exactly, but space to breathe. Almost enough to believe they were safe. Almost. Liora sat in Cassian's private office, surrounded by screens and files, walls lined with maps and digital boards tracking their investigation. They had traced every name, every whisper of her mother's movements, but the final piece, her encrypted failsafe, remained elusive. "Wait," Liora said, zooming in on an old email thread. 2 days before she died, she accessed a private server in Switzerland. Cassian leaned over her shoulder. Could be where she stored it, but why Switzerland? She scanned the screen, scrolling faster. "There's a company, Alpine Securities." She had correspondence with them. Liora ran a quick search, but hit a wall. "Encrypted," she muttered. "High-level firewall." "Let me," Cassian said, reaching around her. His fingers flew across the keyboard. A second later, a window opened. Transaction records, archives, old logs. But one name stopped her cold. "These payments," she said, voice hollow. "They're all routed from subsidiaries of..." She trailed off, ice blooming in her chest. "Rook Industries." Cassian went very still behind her. "That's not possible," she whispered, already diving deeper. Documents, contracts, asset transfers, all linking his company to the cartel's network. "Liora," he said cautiously. She turned, fury rising. "Explain." "It's complicated. Uncomplicated." Her hands trembled as she pulled more files into view. "These began the day after my mother died. Your company didn't just benefit, you absorbed everything, her assets, her legacy." Cassian reached for her, but she stepped back. "Was any of it real?" she asked. "The protection, the investigation? Or was I just another acquisition?" His voice cracked. "Everything I told you about keeping you safe, it was true." "But why?" she asked, each word a wound. Was it guilt, strategy, or profit? He moved toward her again, backing her toward the desk. "No, I didn't kill her. But yes, I used the chaos. I saw an opportunity. I took it." Her laugh was sharp and bitter. "So you didn't murder her. You just built your empire on the ruins of her grave." "Liora, I trusted you," she said, voice low but shaking. "I let you in." He stopped inches from her, desperate now. "Listen to me. I was working with them, at the beginning, but I didn't know what I was part of, not really. By the time I realized it was too late. So I turned. I've been dismantling them from the inside ever since." "And you never thought to tell me?" "I thought I could fix it, that if I gave you safety it would be enough." "But it's not," she whispered. "No," he admitted. Silence pressed between them, heavy as stone. "You weren't the monster I feared," she said. "You were something worse." His eyes darkened. "What's that?" "A man who made me believe he cared while hiding the one truth that would have set me free. Trusting you. Believing you cared." Liora's voice cracked. "That was my mistake." "I do care," Cassian said, stepping forward, his grip tightening gently on her arms. "Everything changed when I met you. Why do you think the cartel turned on me? I was supposed to deliver you to them, but once I saw you, I couldn't." She shoved him back with trembling hands. Don't try to rewrite this as some tragic love story. You're worse than they are. At least they never pretended to be my savior." "Liora, please." Real fear slipped into his voice. "You don't understand how dangerous this is. If they find out you've seen the files..." "They'll what?" she snapped. "Kill me? Like they killed my mother?" Her fingers found her laptop. She clutched it to her chest, backing toward the door. "Like you helped them kill her." "I didn't know," he said, and something in his voice cracked. I swear, I didn't know they planned to murder her. I was just an opportunist, a scavenger picking at corporate chaos. By the time I realized what really happened, it was too late. And what's your excuse for buying me? She spat. Another opportunity? Pain flared across his face. At first, yes. But then I saw you, your strength, your fire. I couldn't let them erase that. She laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. And what? You decided to preserve me like a priceless artifact? Cage me for safekeeping? No, everything after that was real. Real? She whispered, voice breaking now. You kept me locked away, used my mother's death as an excuse to control me, and somewhere in the mess, I started to care about you. I trusted you. She swallowed hard. Was any of it true? My feelings were, Cassian said, stepping toward her. Raw desperation in every line of his body. I care about you, Liora, and the cartel, Reynolds, your stepfather, they're still the enemy. Let me help you finish what your mother started. Like you helped her? She said coldly, hand closing around the door handle. Don't leave. She turned back, voice ablade. Or what? You'll lock me up again? Kill me to protect your empire? Their eyes locked, hers full of rage, his full of ruin. Goodbye, Cassian, she said. I hope your empire was worth it. Then she was gone, racing down the corridor, past stunned security guards and flashing red lights. Outside, the sun bled into the mountains, painting the valley in streaks of crimson. She didn't slow. She knew they'd follow. Cassian's protective instincts weren't false, but they were born of guilt, not love. And that was worse. But she had learned during captivity. She had studied every blind spot, memorized every exit route, every guard rotation, every emergency protocol, including the location of the compound's escape caches, money, weapons, fuel, contingencies for war. Now, they were her tools for freedom. As night fell fully, she found the cache and pulled it open with shaking fingers. Within minutes, she had hot-wired one of the older maintenance trucks and sped down the mountain roads. The compound's lights vanished behind her, swallowed by the trees in the dark. The stolen laptop rested on the passenger seat beside her. Inside, the encrypted files. The proof. The rot. It wasn't justice. Not yet. But it was a start. She would finish what her mother began. She would expose everyone involved, including the man who had whispered love into her ear while building an empire on her mother's grave. But first, she had to survive. Cassian had been right about one thing. Knowledge was dangerous. And now that she held it, the cartel wouldn't stop. Reynolds would come. Cassian would come too. Not to silence her, but to save her. And that perhaps was even more dangerous. Because monsters in love didn't surrender what they cherished. They crushed it. Called it protection. Called it care. Liora drove through the night, her heart as storm-dark as the Montana sky. She had once been sold into the shadows. Now, she chose them. They would hide her from enemies, from ghosts, from men who claimed to love her. Thunder rumbled overhead. Ahead was uncertainty, danger, betrayal. But she was her mother's daughter, and she had fire in her blood. She would not stop. Not until every truth was dragged screaming into the light. The rain hammered the motel windows like fists. Liora sat hunched at a cheap desk just outside Seattle, her fingers numb as they moved over the keyboard. Lines of code flickered across the screen, her mother's encrypted files slowly unraveling, layer by painful layer. Dark circles hollowed her eyes, and bruises bloomed across her knuckles. Reminders of a fight in Portland, when she'd caught someone tailing her. Then came the knock. She froze. One hand reached for the pistol, tucked beneath the pillow, her body moving silently toward the peephole. Room service. A voice called. Familiar, mocking. Reynolds. Her heart seized. She glanced at the laptop. Still decrypting, progress bar crawling forward. No time to pack. No time to breathe. The door exploded inward. She barely got a step back before Marcus Reynolds stepped inside, flanked by two armed men, his grin slow and cruel. Really, Liora? He said. Did you honestly think you could hide? It was worth a shot, she replied, backing toward the bathroom. Her eyes swept the room, calculating exits, angles, odds. We've been watching since Montana, he said, brushing his fingers over the paper she'd spread out. Quite the dramatic exit, poor Cassian. He really thought he could keep you safe. You were working with him, she snapped. Reynolds barked a laugh. Is that what you believe? He shook his head. Sweetheart, you have no idea what's really going on. He nodded once. The two men lunged. Liora fought like hell, elbow to a throat, knee to a gut, But a third figure stepped out of the bathroom and the world cracked open behind her eyes as something hard slammed into her skull. She came to in the dark, wrists bound to the arms of a metal chair. The air was thick with salt and rust. A warehouse. Near the water, maybe. Her head pounded. Footsteps approached. Finally awake, Reynolds said, emerging from the shadows, sleeves rolled, smile sharp. Let's talk about your mother's little insurance policy. Go to hell, she rasped, after you. He struck her, hard. A ring on his hand split her lip. Blood dripped down her chin. Where's the fail-safe? I don't know. Wrong answer. He dragged a chair closer, invading her space. Before she died, your mother hid something. Account numbers, names, transactions, everything that could bring down our entire operation. He grabbed her jaw, fingers digging into bone. But don't worry. Your mother resisted too, at first. You're lying, Liora said, voice shaky but sharp. You killed her before she could talk. Reynolds chuckled. Is that what Cassian told you, that we murdered her to protect our secrets? He leaned back, lighting a cigarette. Smoke curled between them like a snake. Her death was an accident, he said. Tragic. Poorly timed, but not planned. What the hell are you talking about? She found us, he said, uncovered the truth, and she didn't want justice, she wanted in. No. She made a deal. Her silence in exchange for influence, shares, power, a seat at the table. She was negotiating with us, Liora, finalizing terms. Then her car hit a tree and ruined everything. Liora shook her head, refusing to believe it. She would never, she wasn't. Everyone has a price, Reynolds said smoothly. And your mother's was empire. She wanted control of the company and a say in our American operations. He pulled out his phone and swiped through emails, documents, meeting transcripts. Leora's stomach twisted. That's not. You want to know why we need the fail-safe? Reynolds continued, his tone growing colder. Because it proves she was part of it. That she was one of us. He leaned forward. If that evidence goes public, it doesn't just take down the cartel, it wipes out everything your mother built. Everything Killian's built. Her breath caught. Cassian's been looking for it too. Reynolds smiled again, something sharp and empty behind his teeth. Cassian Rook doesn't work for anyone. Not us. Not your stepfather. Since your mother's death, he's been hunting us. Using his influence, his company, every fake deal and shell merger, to get close, to tear it all down from the inside. But the files, the contracts, the payments, all part of his cover, Reynolds interrupted. He made us believe he was one of us, and for a long time we did believe, until you. He exhaled smoke slowly. Now you've seen too much. To gain our trust, Reynolds murmured, crushing his cigarette into the flesh of her arm. Liora gasped, breath catching between her teeth. The pain was sharp, but not sharper than the ache inside her chest. All those years he played the long game, Reynolds continued, circling her like a vulture. 5 years of building credibility, slowly climbing the ranks. Then he broke pattern. For you, and now everything's unraveled. Why are you telling me this? She asked, voice hoarse. Reynolds checked his watch. Because in less than an hour, Cassian Rook is going to walk through that door thinking he's come to rescue you. He leaned in, and you'll watch him die, knowing his love for you walked him straight into our trap. He won't come, she whispered. But even as the words left her lips, she knew the truth. He was coming. Of course he was. He's been following your trail since Seattle, Reynolds said, eyes gleaming. Always one step behind, but never far. Did you really believe you escaped his compound on your own? He let you go, knowing you'd lead us to what he needed most. The fail-safe, she breathed. His final play, your mother's legacy. Footsteps echoed outside. Heavy, purposeful. Reynolds rose, drawing his weapon. Right on schedule. The warehouse doors groaned open. Cassian stepped through the shadows, hands raised. His eyes locked on Liora, bloodied, bruised but alive, and his expression shattered with emotion she hadn't dared believe was real. I have what you want, he said, voice calm. The fail-safe, names, accounts, all of it. Let her go and it's yours. Noble, to the bitter end. Reynolds sneered. He motioned to his men. But let's be honest. I can take it from your corpse. You can try, Cassian said, and his voice changed, laced now with iron. Then the warehouse erupted. Windows shattered as James and the tactical team stormed in. Gunfire ripped through the air. Sparks flew from rusted beams. Screams and orders collided. Reynolds grabbed Leora's chair, pressing his gun to her temple. Call them off, he shouted. But she was already moving. She'd worked her bindings loose during his monologue, waiting for this exact moment. With a burst of strength, she drove her head back into his nose. The crack of cartilage was deeply satisfying. The chair toppled. Reynolds stumbled. Cassian's bullet hit center mass. Reynolds collapsed. Cassian was at her side in seconds, cutting through the final rope, hands brushing her wrists, her face, her skin, checking for injury, for breath, for her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." She touched his jaw, eyes meeting his, seeing the whole truth at last. "You let me believe you were the villain." "It was safer that way," he said. "If you hated me, they'd believe it too." He helped her to her feet. Around them, James's team secured the warehouse, the floor littered with shattered weapons and crumpled bodies. Cassian took her face in his hands, his forehead resting against hers. "Now," he said, "we finish what your mother started. If you can trust me. One last time." Liora looked down at Reynolds' body, then at the documents strewn across the floor, the final evidence of a years-long deception that had served only one truth. "No more lies," she whispered. "No more lies," Cassian echoed. Then he kissed her, soft, bloody, fierce. It didn't taste like redemption. It tasted like war. Morning light glinted off a 40-story monolith of glass and steel, the Valencia cartel's corporate facade gleaming above the city like a monument to power. From a secured apartment across the street, Liora watched it through a scope. Her breath steady, her heart not. "It's there," Cassian said, tightening the straps of his tactical vest. The failsafe, hidden in the one place they thought no one would ever look, their own headquarters. "How can you be sure?" she asked. He pulled up a schematic on his tablet. "Before she died, your mother left clues, breadcrumbs. I've been following them for 5 years. This was always the final destination." James entered with final reports. "All teams are in place. FBI's waiting. Every exit is covered. Full council is upstairs." "Perfect," Cassian murmured. He loaded his weapon. "They think they're here to celebrate Reynolds' success." Liora scanned the building plans. Her brow furrowed. "Something's off." Cassian looked at her. "What?" "It's too clean," she said. "Too easy." He didn't smile. "It's supposed to be." His voice was colder now. Focused. Ready. "They think we're walking into a trap. But this time, we're the ones setting it." "They're expecting me," Cassian said, "hoping I'll crash through the doors, guns blazing, ready to save you in some grand gesture." Liora's eyes narrowed. "But you're not coming to save me," she said softly. "I already have," he replied. "They just don't know it yet." He glanced at James, and in that unspoken look, everything clicked. "They think Reynolds still has you," James confirmed, "that you're still in play." Realization hit. "You're using yourself as bait," Liora breathed, "to draw them all in, the entire council." Cassian didn't meet her eyes. "While they're watching me," he said, "James's team will access their server room and extract the data." "No." She grabbed his arm, fingers tightening with panic. "That's suicide." "It's necessary." Finally, he looked at her. His eyes carried every unsaid word, every withheld truth. "Your mother died trying to expose them. I won't let her sacrifice die with her." "And what about your sacrifice?" she demanded. "You expect me to just stand here and watch you walk into a trap?" Cassian pulled her close, fast, fierce. His kiss was fire, desperation, goodbye. "I expect you to finish what we started," he whispered. "The failsafe, the contacts, the evidence, it's all yours now." "I don't want evidence," Liora said, trembling. "I want you, alive." "No," she stepped back. Her voice broke. "You don't get to be the martyr. Not after everything we've been through." James cleared his throat awkwardly. "She's right, sir. There has to be another way." "We don't have time," Cassian snapped, checking his watch. "The council meeting starts in 30 minutes. This is our only shot." Liora's mind whirled. 5 years of her mother's investigation, the encrypted files, the elusive fail-safe, the building's labyrinthine security. Then it clicked. "The server room," she said suddenly, eyes sparking. "We don't need it," Cassian turned. "What?" "Think like her," Liora said. "She knew if she threatened them outright, they'd kill her, so she hid the fail-safe somewhere they'd never think to look." She pulled up the building schematics on her tablet. "Not in the servers," she said, "in their artwork." His eyes widened. "The private gallery," she nodded. "The pride of the Valencia family. Priceless paintings, on display in the council room." "She was an art collector too," Cassian said slowly, understanding dawning. "She knew their patterns, their vanity, And today, Liora continued, they're unveiling a new piece. A donation, anonymous, arranged 5 years ago. A gift from a ghost, Cassian whispered, awe in his voice. Exactly. Liora's smile was sharp. From my mother. The plan came together like a symphony of danger. Cassian would create the diversion, storming the lobby, demanding answers, triggering lockdowns. Liora would move through maintenance tunnels, reaching the council chamber. James's tactical team would secure the perimeter and sync with FBI teams waiting just outside. It's still dangerous, Cassian warned as they geared up. If they catch you, then you'll save me, Liora said, adjusting her gear, like you always do. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her close. I can't lose you. You won't. She kissed him, gentle this time, a promise more than a plea. But you have to trust me. Like I trusted you, even when I thought you were the enemy. At dawn, the operation began. Cassian entered through the main doors, alone, defiant, a man with nothing left to lose. As expected, alarms shrieked to life. Armed guards swarmed the lobby, the council alerted. Everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Beneath them, in the building's arteries, Liora moved like a shadow, guided by James's voice in her earpiece. You're close, he said. Council rooms ahead. No heat signatures. They've all moved to the lower floors. The grand chamber was empty. All eyes were on the drama below. The painting loomed at the far end of the room, still veiled in its protective wrap. She approached it carefully, heart-pounding. Subtle etchings marked the frame. Her mother's symbols. I'm in position, she whispered into her comms. Ready for phase 2. Below, Cassian's voice echoed through security channels. Do you know what you've built here? He shouted. A monument of rot, a temple of blood. He demanded names, records, truth. He played the desperate man perfectly, rage dancing with recklessness. But Liora knew better. This was control, calculated, deadly. And upstairs, with her hands trembling, she reached for the painting, ready to reveal what her mother had hidden in plain sight. Witness his fall, her mother had written. Liora worked swiftly, removing the backing of the painting. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of legacy. Embedded within the frame, she found it. A slim data drive and a folded note, yellowed with time. For my daughter. The truth will set us free. Footsteps echoed outside the council room. She slid the backing into place and disappeared into the shadows just as the cartel's inner circle entered. Draped in arrogance and power, their attention fixed on the security screens. Killian, alone in the lobby, held their gaze like a storm waiting to be unleashed. Bring him up, one of them ordered. Let him face justice. Minutes later, Cassian was dragged into the room, battered but unbroken. Blood at his temple, fire in his eyes. He scanned the chamber once and found her immediately. Looking for someone? The cartel's leader asked. Your precious Liora, perhaps? She's safe from you, Cassian said, voice like iron. That's all that matters. Safe? The man laughed coldly. No one is safe from us. Your crusade ends here. Does it? Cassian smiled, blood painting his teeth. Check your phones. All at once, the room lit up with chaos. Screens flashed, alerts blared, secure data uploading. Target, federal authorities, account names, transactions, recipients. Impossible, someone breathed. The servers were a decoy, a voice said behind them. Liora stepped from the shadows holding the drive. You were so busy guarding your fortress of firewalls, you forgot to check your walls. Pandemonium. Guards reached for weapons, but it was too late. FBI teams flooded the upper floors. James's tactical unit burst through side doors, sweeping the room with practiced precision. Cassian moved like lightning, disarming a man in a single brutal strike. Within minutes, it was over. The leaders of the Valencia cartel were on their knees, their empire burning from the inside out. Liora stood beside Cassian at the edge of the council room, looking out over a city drenched in morning light. Your mother would be proud, he whispered. Liora took his hand. She could feel the tremors in his fingers. Adrenaline, release, maybe even peace. She'd be proud of us. They had won. Justice, truth, revenge. But Liora knew that the real victory was finding someone worth surviving for. Liora stood in her mother's office, rebuilt, cleansed of the shadows that once haunted it. Carter Industries was hers now, reborn from ashes into something that could finally do good. Outside the window, the New York skyline glittered like it always had. But everything else had changed. Her phone buzzed. Another news alert. Valencia cartel, 37 convictions. Global assets seized, more pending. Her mother's failsafe had cracked empires across continents. It was over. The door opened behind her. Cassian stepped in, looking strangely human in jeans and a plain shirt. "The board meeting's ready?" he said. "Let them wait." She turned, brushing her hand across a photo of her mother, smiling at a gala just weeks before her death. "I've been thinking about Montana," she said. "Regrets?" "The opposite." She faced him fully. "I hated you once. I was so sure you were the villain, but you let me hate you to keep me safe." He moved closer. His presence, once a storm, now felt like calm. "I didn't deserve your trust back then, but you earned it." Her fingers traced the scar on his shoulder, a remnant from that final night. "Every lie," she whispered. "Every secret. It was to protect me." "Not all of it," he said quietly, placing his hand over hers. "Some of it was selfish." "Like what?" "Like falling in love with my prisoner." His voice carried the weight of pain, of years spent watching from the shadows. "I told myself it was duty, that I owed your mother. But it wasn't that. Not really. It was the way you fought, the way you never surrendered." Liora smiled softly, tears burning behind her eyes. "When did you know?" He didn't hesitate. "The night you tried to run," he said. "Standing in the rain, defying me without fear. I knew then I'd never cage you again." His thumb traced the pulse at her wrist, once a mark of control, now a promise, of freedom, of choice, of something that didn't need to be stolen to be real. "You deserve tenderness," he whispered. "And you," Liora said, stepping into his space, "deserved freedom." Cassian's breath caught. "But freedom isn't about walking alone," she added, voice soft but certain. "It's about choosing who to walk beside." Everything between them had shifted since the fall of the cartel. No more power games, no more truths buried under the guise of protection. The dynamic that had once been laced with fear and fire had become something else. They were equals now. Partners, in business, in life, in everything that mattered. "The media's still watching," Cassian murmured, though his hands rested easily at her waist, waiting for the scandal, the captive who fell for her captor. "Let them watch," Liora said, winding her arms around his neck. "We've survived worse than headlines." He smiled, soft and unguarded. "You've changed me, you know. The man who bought you, he wouldn't recognize the man standing here now." "Good," she teased. "He was kind of a jerk." Cassian laughed, the sound rare enough to be a treasure. But then his eyes sobered. "I don't deserve this," he said. "You. Not after everything I did." "Stop." Liora touched her fingers to his lips. "We've both made choices we regret, told lies, fought battles, but every path, every scar led us here, and I wouldn't rewrite a single step. Even the part where I kept you locked away? Even that," she said with a soft smile, "though your security could use some work. I escaped, twice." "I let you escape," he countered, eyes glinting. "Sure you did." The banter felt natural now, familiar, a dark past reshaped into something they could almost laugh about. "Almost." "Marry me," Cassian said suddenly. Liora blinked. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated, voice steady. "Not out of guilt or redemption or to make things right. Marry me because I love you, because I want to spend my life proving I deserve you." She raised an eyebrow. "Quite a proposal from the man who once bought me." "I'm trying to be romantic," he groaned. "By reminding me I was once property?" With a growl, he lifted her onto the desk. "You're impossible. You love it." She kissed him, smile pressed to his lips. "And yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." He kissed her like it was the first time and the last. His control shattered. "But just so we're clear," she added, breathless, "I'm keeping my company." "I wouldn't dream of taking it from you," he said, fingers tangled in her hair. "You're a better CEO than I ever was." "Damn right." The board could wait. The world could wait. Right now, they had this stolen moment of peace earned through blood and fire. This quiet proof that even the most twisted story could end in light. Later, as the sun set over Manhattan, painting the city in gold, Liora stood by the window. Cassian behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist. She stared out at the skyline her mother once loved, her heart unexpectedly full. "Thinking about something?" he asked softly. "How different everything could have been," she said, "if you'd just asked me to dinner like a normal person." He laughed, the sound rumbling through her back. "Would you have said yes?" "Probably not," she admitted. "You were terrifying. Still are sometimes." She turned in his arms. "But now I know. It's just armor." "Not all of it," he said, eyes darkening. "Some of it's real." "Then prove it." He kissed her again, slow this time, reverent. Their love had never been perfect. It was born in captivity, tested by betrayal, scarred by truths that almost tore them apart. But it survived, because they chose each other. Every day, they began as captor and captive, became enemies, then allies, then something else entirely. Soulmates forged in fire. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still shadows, still nights when fear crept back in, still ghosts, but they faced them together. And in the end, that wasn't perfect. It was better. It was real. Bookmark. To everyone who has followed Liora and Cassian's story, thank you. Thank you for every moment you spent immersed in their world, for holding your breath through the twists, aching with the heartbreaks, and celebrating their victories. This wasn't just a story about love or justice. It was about finding light in the darkest places, about healing, and about choosing each other, even when the world says not to. We hope this story reminded you that even the most broken beginnings can lead to powerful, beautiful endings. That love can grow where fear once lived, that redemption is possible. From the first chapter to the last whispered promise, you were with us, and for that, we're deeply grateful. With all our hearts, thank you.